It's me, Gemma. Excuse the terrible lighting, but it's actually starting to get dark outside and I've got my ring light on, so we'll make do with what we have. So I wanted to talk about the books I've read so far in February. I've read about 20 something books and I have read most of them on Kindle. I haven't been buying a lot of physical books at all because basically I don't have the patience to wait for them. I can't go and pick them up. Normally I work in like a big metropolitan sort of city centre and my bus stop is right next to Waterstones, so I can go in and get pretty much whatever I want. But I can't right now, so I'm buying a lot on Kindle. But the first couple of books I read this month were the conclusions of series that I have been meaning to finish for quite a long time. So first of all, I finished Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden, and this is the final book in the Winter Night trilogy. It's about Vasya, she's a witch, and it's about her dealing with the aftermath, obviously, of what happened in the second book, which I won't spoil for you, but it kind of comes to one conclusion about a quarter of the way through the book, and then you realise, oh, there's other things going on, which I totally enjoyed. I love the Russian folklore mythology in this book. It's a really atmospheric kind of read. I loved the sort of character study of Vasya, and I loved the ending that it gave her as well. It reminded me a little bit of the Ember Queen series ending, if you know what I mean. But I would thoroughly recommend the Winter Night series. I gave this book 4 stars, and I would quite happily pick up whatever else Catherine Arden reads. And also, if you like this series, I would recommend Deathless by Kathleen M. Valenti. If you know any other books with Russian folklore, please comment below. Now, this one I'd been putting off for quite a while because I love this series, and that is Dark Dawn by J. Christoph. This is the third book in the series, the first two being Nevernight and God's Grave. And what can I say? I haven't said about this series before. I love it. It's about Mia. She's an assassin. She's trying to take vengeance for what happened to her family, but of course nothing is ever that simple, and she is part of a much wider sort of picture, and there are things that connect her to the wider world that she wasn't aware of and that she has to sort of take into consideration and learn that it's not just about her family or about what happened to her, and it's about her sort of thinking about outside herself as well, or at least that's what I kind of always took from it, especially book number 2. But I really thought book number 3 had that sort of feel as well, but I won't spoil it because if you're on BookTube you're probably going to end up reading Nevernight or God's Grave, let's be honest, unless you completely hate fantasy. You'll probably give it a go at some point. So then, like I say, I've been reading so much more on my Kindle, and I'm just going to go through my Goodreads and let you know what I thought. So the first one I read this month was Murderous Contagion, A Human History of Disease. I don't think I need to explain why I read this book, but it was super interesting, and it covered, you know, like contagious diseases like flu, smallpox, all that kind of stuff, and also diseases like polio and cancer, and it was really, really interesting. If you like medical history at all, then you would probably enjoy this. I just don't recommend it while you're eating, to be frank, because there are bits in it that I was like, and I have quite a strong stomach when it comes to stuff like that. So I gave that 3 stars. I thought it was pretty good. It was published back in 2014, but there were bits in it that at the moment were a bit on the nose, shall we say. So then I read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I gave it 4 stars. It's set in a creepy American motel out in the middle of nowhere. A night clerk was missing in the 70s, and in the present day her niece turns up to try and find out what happened to her. And there's supernatural elements, there's ghosts, is there a serial killer? Loads going on. Really atmospheric. I really liked both the timelines. Sometimes I think you can find like historic timelines quite dull, or I do anyway, but no, I was really into the characters in both of the timelines. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the better thrillers that I've read recently, to be honest. So, what was after that? Now, I did have a physical copy of this, but I don't know where I've put it. It's somewhere. But it was The Library of the Unwritten by A.G. Hackworth, and this I really enjoyed. It was a really cool concept. Basically, there are metaphysical libraries of different kinds, and this particular one is a library of books that never got written. They were thought about by their authors, they were planned, but they were just never completed. So they live in this library, which is attached onto hell, and our main character is the librarian of the Unwritten library. Very cool, like very metaphysical, I suppose, about stories and words and characters. I gave it 4 stars. There's a new one that's come out, which is going to be on my TBR probably for April, but I would thoroughly recommend starting this series. Really something quite different. So then I read, let me see what was next, The Girls of Brackenhell by Kate Moretti. Now, I gave this 3 stars on Goodreads, but more like a 2.5 stars for me anyway. Very atmospheric. Basically, a woman moves back to her family's house after her aunt dies in a car accident, and it all links back to something that happened when they were teenagers and her sister went missing. My main issue with this book was that I didn't like any of the characters, and I just didn't really find them all that compelling, to be honest. It might work out for some people, but I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't enough of one thing. Like, it wasn't enough of a thriller, but also it wasn't enough of supernatural stuff. So it kind of was a bit nowhere for me. So that's why I only got 2.5 stars, but someone else might enjoy it. Then I read The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I'm reading my way through Riley Sager's books at the moment. I've read Final Girls as well, which was okay for me. And then this one, Last Time I Lied, is basically about a woman who was at summer camp as a kid, and the 3 girls she was sharing like a bunkhouse with went missing and never were found, and she was kind of not blamed for it, but it's definitely affected her adult life. And then, like, later on, the woman that owns the camp decides to sort of reopen it again and invites her to come back as like a teacher at the camp teaching art. And so she's trying to find out what happened to the 3 girls before, and generally, you know, figuring out this mystery. So I gave this one 3 stars. It was pretty generic for me. I saw the ending coming like a mile away. There was a part to the ending where I felt like they should have just left it like open-ended instead of having to tie everything up in like a neat little bow, but that's just my opinion. So then I decided to pick up Night Film by Marisha Pessel, and this one I think went around BookTube maybe the year before last. A lot of people read it then, and I didn't watch any reviews of it. I just knew that some people had issues with it, and I can certainly see why. The first sort of 3/4 of the book I thought were actually really good, and that's why it even got 3 stars, because the ending was so irritating. Honestly, I could have just thrown, if it had been a physical book, I would have thrown it across the room. I was so annoyed at that ending. I just felt like it was a total cop-out, like it had been building up and building up. Basically, a really renowned film director, he makes like horror films, and his daughter turns up, she's committed suicide. A journalist is trying to find out why, and there's all this dark stuff. Is there like Satanists? Is there cults? You know, whatever. And it builds up this really good, scary tension, and then just lets it go completely at the end. I hated that ending so much. Please tell me in the comments that I'm not alone. Please. So I then read some non-fiction. I read The Witches Are Coming by Lindy West. It was kind of fine. It's just a book of essays on like feminism and stuff like that. It wasn't anything super special, nothing that'll kind of stick with me, to be honest. I gave it 2.5 stars. So then one that did stick with me a bit more was Girl A by Abigail Dean. Now this reminded me of the, not Diggers, the family that the girl escaped and they'd been like chaining the kids to the bed. That's what this book basically reminded me of. Very kind of atmospheric. I didn't really see the ending coming. I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it if you like sort of messed up stuff. And yeah, I just liked it. If you like, it does have a bit of a true crime bent to it as well. And I also liked that the main character had been through like a lot of trauma and stuff, but was still like successful. Do you know what I mean? She was still had like a successful kind of life. So if you liked like My Dark Vanessa and stuff, I think you would probably like Girlie. So I was on a bit of a horror kick. Then I read The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This had kind of a very sort of evil fairyland vibe to it. Again, a woman, her, I think it was her grand, dies and leaves her a house, and it's like a hoarder house, so she agrees with her dad that she'll go and empty this hoarder house. And as she's doing it, she finds like creepy things going on. There's creepy things happening in the woods. There's links back to sort of fairy mounds and stuff. I really thought it was good. I thought it was really different. The world building was good, and I liked the characters as well. I liked the main character, and I liked the way she was written, so I gave that one 4 stars, which is pretty good. Then one that I was a bit more hyped up for, but I didn't enjoy as much, and that was Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. And yeah, Emily M. Danforth. And this one was again like a horror sort of haunted all girls school moment, where it's told in kind of like an omniscient narrator style, and it's about 3 women who become involved with the movie of a true story about the goings on and happenings at an all girls school. I quite liked it. It was very kind of like a very sapphic book, very queer book. I liked 2 out of the 3 main characters. One of them really did kind of didn't really like it, but nevertheless I thought it was pretty good. And let's see, so after that I read The Ghost Tree by Christina Henry, and this one again horror. Again, a girl goes missing, and it's about a town where like a girl dies every year but the town doesn't remember it, and it's all about why there's this curse on the town and what happens to the girls and the history and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was really good, and I thought the relationships in it were really strong, especially the relationship between like the main character and her mother. It was a really unusual relationship, I felt, in that kind of narrative. It was, I believe, a YA horror, but I gave it 4 stars. I would think it was pretty good. So then I read some true crime, The Duct Tape Killer. Sorry, I cannot say that. The Duct Tape Killer, and who is that by? Sorry, I'm using my other phone for Goodreads. By Phil Hammond, Sandy Hammond, and Larry Long, and it covers basically a big long stretch of time, a guy who's a con artist and a murderer and just generally awful, and by some connected cold cases and things like that. If you like true crime, you may have heard of the story. There was an episode, I believe, of like the FBI files or something on the case as well. Like once I got into it, I was like, oh, I actually know this story. I know I've seen an episode on this. So yeah, pretty good, pretty decent quality, some stuff that I didn't know, well researched. That's generally the standard by which I judge true crime. Is there a reason why the book was written? As in, is there something to be gained knowledge-wise by writing this book? So let's see what was next. A kind of slasher. We had There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This one, I would say the first half of the book was really good. Tension building was really great. And then it sort of unspooled towards the end. I gave it 3 stars. I can't really say much about it without spoiling it. But I thought it gave away the game far too early, in my opinion, in this book. So I wouldn't kind of bother with it. So then I read, let me see, Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. And this one was really kind of different. I really enjoyed this one, actually. It is about a group of friends who one of their sister has gone missing years before. So many missing girls in these books. Their sister's gone missing, and there's a whole legend, it's told kind of Blair Witch style. There's some narrative in it. There's some descriptions of like video and audio and interviews. I really kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was something different. I thought the narrative parts, which were the sort of horror element, were really strong. And from the way that it was told, I think there's probably going to be like a sequel, possibly not with the same characters, but I would read a sequel. So this one is just recently out, and I've not really seen many people talk about it, but it's If I Disappear by Eliza Jane Brazier, and I thought this one was so good. I really enjoyed it because I really did relate to the main character quite a bit. Like, she is obsessed with a true crime podcast, and the host of the podcast goes missing, and she sets off on like a journey to find out what happened to the host of this podcast. And there's a whole cast of weirdos, and it's very tense, and there's undercurrents of sort of really terrible things going on, and really enjoyed it. I thought it was like, I'm really liking the trend of like telling things in podcast style, or like involving podcasts and investigations and stuff like that. I think it's a really good sort of, it's maybe not fresh anymore, but it's a good way of telling a mystery that's a bit different, you know. So that was pretty good. And then another one that involved a podcast is I Hope You're Listening by Tom Ryan. And this one, a girl starts in high school, starts up a podcast anonymously about missing people because another girl is missing. Her best friend was kidnapped, and she was there at the time, and she really wants to do something to help, but she was struggling, and she started this podcast to try and help get the word out about missing people, which I thought was pretty good. And I liked the main character. Again, this had like a sapphic romance in it, which was also pretty cool. It hadn't been marketed like that or anything, but if you're looking for a mystery with a sapphic romance in it, then go for this one. And I also thought that the relationships were good. It really dealt a lot with the survivor's guilt and stuff. And I liked the parents in this one. Like, in a lot of YA, the parents are very absent or neglectful or things like that. But in this one, the main character's parents really weren't. You know, they weren't neglectful, they weren't distant, things like that. She had a good family support behind her, which I thought was different for the genre, and I really liked, to be honest. Okay, we're getting towards the end now, I promise. So I then read The Whisper Man by Alex North, and it was okay. It was okay. I know this sounds a bit weird, right? But see, when there's a book and it's about like a serial killer and they're kidnapping children or doing whatever, and it's all about this very like high concept almost, I just don't find it compelling or credible. Like, I think we can all say that there's normally specific reasons why people kidnap children, and in these books sometimes where they try and make up this new reason, it just doesn't make sense. And also, this is going for the other Alex North book I read this month. Actually, I also read The Shadows by Alex North, and there's a sort of little hint of the supernatural, but it's never really explored. It's only hinted at, and I don't know. I just think if you're going to put sometimes if you're going to put those things in a book, you need to really commit to them, or don't do it at all. Like, it didn't need the supernatural element. It would have been just as scary without it, if that makes sense. So I gave them both, The Whisper Man and The Shadows, 3 stars, leaning more towards 2.5 stars to be honest. And again, that's just because I just, yeah, there was things about it that bugged me in both of them, but you know, that's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. Okay, then I'll group these two together as well. I read The Vanishing Stair and The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson, and that's the second and third book in the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. I enjoyed them both. I thought the mystery was really good. It was quite like Agatha Christie. I like the main character of Stevie. She is fun, she's a good detective, and she's also just figuring out like life in general as well at this school for very sort of gifted kids. So I'm glad there's going to be another Stevie book. I think this is coming out in like June or July, and I'll continue to read on these series. Really good sort of younger leaning middle grade, I would say, mysteries. Nothing too graphic or anything like that, but like could probably be good for like 13 and up, I would say. And then last of all, no, two, I had another two. I read The Burning Girls by C.G. Tudor, which was fine. It was like, had that sort of hint of folk horror, which I really like especially books that are set in the UK, where they have like, you know, it's a little village. Is it a bit sort of Wicker Man? Maybe. I liked it. It was fine. It was a one shot mystery, and yeah, I thought there was quite a lot going on in it. I liked the characters, I liked the setting, and the ending was a bit of a surprise, so that was good. And then the last book I read was a novella, and it is Ring Shite by P. Djeli Clark. And this one was, it's a kind of supernatural twist on the sort of second Ku Klux Klan period that happened after the release of Birth of a Nation, the D.W. Griffiths film. I really liked it. I read it in one sitting in the bath. It was very short novella, but I liked the characters, I liked the writing style, I thought the mythology behind it was good. I thought it was good in the sense of it talked a lot about like Pan-African ritual and mythology brought over from Africa by slaves and sort of melded together because there's people from different parts of Africa in America. So I liked it. I'll read whatever else that author puts out because yeah, it was good. So that was everything I read this month. I hope I haven't rambled on for too long. I feel as if I've talked forever, but it is in fact about 20 minutes. Can't believe that. So next I'm going to film a wrap up, and then I'll hate myself for not having all the physical books and having to insert all the pictures. So speak to you next time. Bye.